Hey all, so back with the fourth champion spotlight with context this month. Appreciate the patience on this one. Obviously, neither y'all nor I had any choice in said patience because hurricanes don't really give us a vote, but still, appreciate that. And let's get right into this. With the champion attributes, first up we have survivability of 3.5. The addition of phasing to this kit doesn't allow the same zero damage taken fights that Viv Vision is capable of, not on the same level, but it does definitely cut down on the amount of block damage you have to take, gives you a little bit extra control of the fight. That plus power control and the multiple immunities on this guy, and just, I believe, above average armor and health that he inherited from OG Vision all make this guy a bit more survivable than normal, and that is reflected here. Damage at 3.5, there's a definite in-fight ramp here, right? In ideal fights, especially with quick specials, class advantage, anything along those lines, I have gotten really good damage numbers with this guy, like absolutely competitive in Battlegrounds. But it is going to depend a bit on the targets. And in general, I would say his damage peak is tuned a little bit later than that. Like, probably going to be at its best in like war level fights, questing, anything like that. But it's good, right? It is legitimately above average, and you're going to reach for Deathless Vision when you want the utility, right? The playstyle overall is fun, but you're reaching for this for the now 3 immunities and for the heal block more than anything else. And then the damage is just going to be enough. Like I said, when it matters, it's really, really good. I have torched my way through Mr. Sinisters on defense with this guy, but I just want to caveat that properly. So, ease of use 3, you kind of need to know how to well-timed block to play this game in the first place. So the skill ask here isn't that high. This is something that you should be able to do. That said, it makes it a little bit more important, not quite to the same level as Viv, right? And less frequently. But between that and making sure that basically just paying attention to the opponent's power bar at all to make sure you get your phase charges in the first place, as we'll talk about. It's not that hard, but there is a definite ask here. Ease of use 3 makes sense. Utility 3.5, really, really good passive heal block. That is the core of this alongside 3 damage over time immunities. All of those are very helpful. When you combine that with a bit of power control, I say a bit of power control because it is less than OG Vision, which I know it's all, I've already seen complaining about it. You wouldn't get what the rest of this kit has to offer with that level of power control. It's never been an option. I've talked about this every time OG Vision has come up. Some people are probably never going to get over it, so I'm not going to say get over it, but that was a necessary trade, right? The power control did come down a bit. But I think it is important to kind of highlight the fact that A, there is still power control there, and it goes in 2 different ways, right? If you're using the special 1 for maximum tempo and therefore maximum damage, you're not getting that much power control. It's kind of just like putting a suppression on the opponent. It's letting you keep your tempo up. It is not actively stopping them from throwing specials, which is on purpose, right? That is your damage loop. That's closer to how like Penny Parker's power burn on her special 1 feels. If you're going for the special 2, you probably have fewer phase charges, at least as frequently, and so you probably are going to be carrying a lower overall number of Furies. We'll talk about all this as we go. And that is going to bring your damage down, but you're going to have more power control. It's not an absolute shutdown, but I do just want to highlight the fact that you can play either way, and there is still real power control here on top of the heal block, on top of the immunities, on top of the miss. So I definitely think 3.5 is fair. Defender strength of 1. This character is even easier than OG Vision because he no longer has that power gain in the sink. Pretty simple. Technically has 1 more immunity, but just don't try to kill him with any of those 3 immunities, and there is nothing going on here. So, strengths and weaknesses. First off, we have phasing. So this is very similar to Viv's phase. You well-time block while you have the currency for it, and you cause incoming attacks to miss for a little bit. This can be used for just extra openings in general, reducing block damage. It allows you to get good openings against opponents that are unblockable themselves. Powerful ability overall. There is a fair amount of power burn here. Like I said, it manifests more as a tempo advantage than it does like really strong power control. Think of it closer to how it's not as strong as Future Ant-Man, but closer to that kind of soft power control, or maybe like Hawkeye, as opposed to Magic or OG Vision. But there's still real power burn here. And then lastly, heal block is definitely the biggest thing here. You learn how to play this kit properly, you can have a passive heal block on the opponent basically the entire fight. He is one of the best at that. Weaknesses: if you can't use your power burn, you can't use your heal block, or you can't use your miss, all of those are going to be a problem. The miss is a bit less problematic, right? The power burn immunity just fully turns you off. You can't get the phase charges, you can't get the furies, you are generally sad. But if the opponent counters miss, you can still well-timed block, you'll just end up parrying them, and then as long as you can hit them from that while the phase is still active, you'll still get the furies, but you won't get pauses, and so your damage will be lower, right? I wouldn't take him against a miss counter if you can avoid it, but I want to call out that that one's less absolute. Moving on. Right out of the gate, always active, we have our standard poison and bleed immunities, and we also have cold snap and frostbite. Dude's used to flying out there in cold space. Next up, phasing. This is the core of the new kit, right? Everything else kind of comes from this, so we'll spend a little bit of time here. If Deathless Vision's special attacks reduce the opponent's power below a full bar, gain 1 phase charge. So that just simply means if they're at or above a bar when you throw the special, and after the special, they're below that, you're going to gain a phase charge. And these can stack up to 5, so you can bank them for a while if you want to. You're often not going to want to, because when Deathless Vision would perform a well-timed block, convert 1 of these phase charges into a phase passive for 1.5 seconds, causing incoming attacks to miss. Phase charges cannot be converted while already phasing, and obviously you need to have a phase charge to convert it, right? So the reason I say you're not usually going to stack these is that while you can, and that can give you extra miss up time, you could potentially do some fancy things with avoiding longer specials. Usually what you're going to want to do with this is almost immediately turn it into a phase passive to get your miss up, because that is better for the tempo of the fight. That's going to give you your openings, and that's going to allow you to access all of these effects below. While phased, Deathless Vision is immune to stun effects, just generally helps things and prevents you from getting parried. Inherited that from Viv. While phased, all hits grant a Fury passive for 20 seconds. This is the main reason that you are chasing this, right? Is to stack up these Furies, and they go up to 12. Again, for both of these, you don't actually need to cause an attack to miss. You just need to get a phase charge and then activate it by well-timed blocking. The reason you care about miss is that when an attack misses Deathless Vision, you pause all Fury effects for 5 seconds. And so this is the tempo part, right? You want to be hitting the opponent a lot so that you can push them over bars of power and then take them back below bars of power with your special attacks so that you can get phase charges, so that you can phase as often as possible, so that you can cause attacks to miss, so that you can pause your Furies. The more often you pause your Furies, the easier it's going to be to stack more of them, the easier it's going to be to sit at a higher number of them, and the more damage your attacks will do. And when you have all 12 of these Furies, or even just a significant number of them, they are quite potent, and Vision hits very hard. Last little bonus here, if activated during an opponent's special attack, gain an additional Fury passive. So this is an opportunity for skill expression. If you can basically parry an opponent's special attack in the right spot, then you get an additional Fury passive for it, and then also can punish their special and land hits while phasing, gaining your Furies. But also, this just allows you to use the phase to avoid dangerous special attacks you might not otherwise have an answer for without feeling the need to punish them or hit as many times during the phase, and it gives you some credit for using the phase charge that way without losing out on too much damage. So next up, special attacks grant no power to the opponent. This goes for all of them, including the special 3, and this has a couple important consequences. First off, from a gameplay perspective, this means you don't have to do any guesswork about where the opponent's power will be before the power burn kicks in, and therefore if you will have them cross a bar, you just look at where their power is and throw the special accordingly. But from a RPG perspective, from a mechanics and interactions perspective, this is itself power control, right? This is power control that does not require the opponent to be vulnerable to power burn. Against somebody who is immune to power burn, you can throw the special 3 at 2.5 bars with Deathless Vision and they won't go red. You shouldn't be in that matchup, but I just want to use that example to shout out that this is itself not just power control as far as taking power away from the opponent. This is power control in the sense that they never get this power in the first place. It is closer to future Ant-Man and Punisher 2099 in that sense. And when you combine that with the power burn, this is what I mean when I say there is still real power control in this kit. It's just that you are seeing their power bar go down less. But do not underestimate this clause. In a lot of fights, a huge chunk of the power you grant to your opponent is when you hit them with your specials, and Deathless Vision just doesn't have to ever deal with that. So second bullet here, if the special attack generates a phase charge, inflict a heal block passive for 15 seconds. Good long passive, right? You can lose this if the opponent has very long specials or if you're not managing your own specials properly, but if your priority in the fight is heal block, and you just spam the special 1 in the right spot and get a phase charge every time, it is not difficult to hold on to this, right? One special every 15 seconds is very doable. So the special 1 specifically burns up to 35% of a bar of power, dealing direct damage proportionate to the amount lost, as usual with power burn. It is important to note that this is a bar of power, not 35% of max power. And so that is a pretty significant apparent nerf to the power control. But again, this is power burn on a special that grants no power. This is a key part of what makes Magic so dangerous, right? That her specials don't grant the opponent power. And Deathless Vision has this as well. And so you're not giving the opponent power, and then you're taking a third of a bar away. And that is, again, much easier math to do as far as, are they within that distance of their next bar? If so, you'll take them below it and you'll get a phase charge, right? So if you are just chasing phase charges and Furies, or phase charges and heal blocks, and therefore Furies, I personally prefer just spamming the special 1. There's no shame in it. It is the highest tempo one here. You're knocking your opponent down a lot. You're keeping them aggressive. You are staying in control of the fight. This is the way you normally will end up playing Deathless Vision, even though it has, quote, less power control. The special 2 burns a full bar more than that, right? 135% of a bar of power, also dealing damage. And this can give you 2 phase charges, right? If you push your opponent to like 2.1 bars of power and then throw this, you'll bring them from 2.1 to, what is that, 0.85, and that's going to cross 2 bars and therefore give you 2 phase charges. So it's not necessarily less efficient than the special 1 in that way, it's just that it spreads the phase charges and the heal blocks out. And so your uptime may be a little bit worse. But if you need to trade that uptime for something else in the fight, right? For the tempo that the fight demands, where you just need to do all of your stuff right here in this window, or if you need the extra power control from the special 2, which again is 135% of a bar of power on a special that does not grant power to the opponent, then you want the special 2. And then the special 3 burns 2 bars of power, flat out, which of course can give you 2 more phase charges, and then gives you a phase charge for free. So this is potentially a phase charge per bar of power spent for all 3 of the special attacks. The power control on the special 3 here is the strongest, but again, you are spreading it out and only using it in one spot. Maybe that's what you need, because your opponent is only going to gain a bunch of power in one particular area, and you want to get them from where they are to under a bar. Because, as a reminder, unless your opponent is literally at 3 bars, this will always put them under a bar, because, I know I'm underlining this a bunch, but it's worth it, this doesn't give the opponent power. So throwing this is pretty much always going to take your opponent off of the ability to throw any special at all. And that is itself a tempo advantage, because then they're probably going to get up, try and hit you, and you're going to immediately be able to use that first phase charge. That is the way that a lot of these specials work, where you put the opponent below a bar as you throw it. That is often where you want to line it up. But I just want to say that the special 3 in particular is nearly guaranteed to do this. So it is a little bit of an easy button in that sense. All 3 of the specials are viable. Like I said, there's no shame in spamming the special 1. It is what I personally tend to do. Now, onto the signature ability here. While the opponent is suffering from heal block, Deathless Vision gains extra attack rating. This is worth about 2.5 of his Furies at max sig. So this is pretty nice, because it effectively means that when you go for that very first phase charge, and you would get 2 or 3 Furies, because you're getting a heal block as you do that, those first 2 or 3 Furies are worth more like 5 or 6. And that means you're going to be hitting significantly harder earlier, and that's going to make you a lot faster in fights where you care about that. And then, for every 4% of the opponent's max health prevented by heal block, you inflict an instant degen, dealing more damage. So this is obviously related to how the Vision Relic works, and this just punishes your opponents for trying to heal while you're telling them that they can't. Pretty solid sig. I think most of the time the attack rating is going to be more important, but if you're chasing people who heal, like Mr. Sinister, then this is pretty nice. So, synergies. We have Artificial Souls with Vision. This is your standard Deathless suite, right? We have one with the non-Deathless version of the character. We have one with the next Deathless. We have one with someone, wink wink nudge nudge, and then we have a Deathless version of a generic at the end. But Artificial Souls with Vision means that when Deathless Vision gains a bar of power, he also gets a precision buff, increase in critical rating, which allows you to land some pretty big yellow numbers, because remember all those Furies more often. And then for OG Vision, burning a bar of power grants a Fury buff, helping him out with damage, which is the thing he of course needs. Forerunner, which is for the next Deathless, I am just going to take a second to tease y'all here for a minute, because the trailer for the next one is done. We've seen it. It is so cool. I'm so excited for it. That's all I can say there, but hopefully it comes out soon, because, yeah, very excited. Anyway, Vision's part of that synergy is that he starts each fight with an indefinite cruelty passive, increase in critical damage rating for each Deathless champion on the team. So, if you're doing a full Deathless team, you're not going to have the precision from the Vision synergy above, but you can get very big yellow numbers when they do happen. This is, of course, only on the 7-star, which is what most people are going for anyway, but that means that you have access to stat focus anyway. So you're probably going to pick crit rate, and then you're going to be benefiting from these cruelties more often as it is. Deathless Processor Vision gets this benefit upon triggering an immunity, automatically burn half a bar of power off of the opponent, and then if this takes them below a bar of power, gain a phase charge. This has a 12-second cooldown. So it does take a while to come back online, but this is free power control if you can hunt these immunities, and remember he now has another one in Cold Snap. And on top of that, this is potentially another phase charge, which is more Furies, more pauses, more heal blocks, and I want to make this point, also more chances to just completely avoid incoming damage by not blocking. Then lastly, Deathless counterparts with a few other robots and family. Ultron, Ultron Classic, Vivision, Scarlet Witch, and Wiccan. Any of them on the team, and then all champions named or not gain extra health. Nice little bit there. And then our last bit here, specifically with King Groot, the hidden part of that synergy, is going to give Deathless Vision the ability to start each fight with an indefinite Fury passive for each Deathless champion on the team. These are significantly weaker than the ones that Vision gets within his own kit, but still, damage is damage. Touching on masteries real quick, yes, you technically can use recoil on this character. I do not recommend it. Using the special 3 only is possible. Like we talked about, it can be technically as efficient as the special 1, but your tempo is going to be slower. You're going to be pausing your Furies less. It's not quite the same. If you're one of those people that just refuses to turn these masteries off, then yeah, sure, he'll be fine. His kit does work for you, but I wouldn't turn them on for him. Color Tech is definitely good for him. I've found that it is a little bit of a learning curve lining your specials up with taking the opponent just over a bar of power, and you do have to bait out some extra specials to make that work. With Collar Tech maxed, it just kind of lines up. And everything feels a lot better, and you are probably going to keep the opponent... you are going to keep the opponent to fewer specials, but I also think the tempo is probably going to feel better. So that's something to consider. There are a lot of tech champions these days that do benefit from this if you want to dedicate one of your mastery builds to that, maybe. And then, obviously, I'm not going to spend any time on the Relic. He literally has abilities from the Vision Relic. Put that on him. But that's Deathless Vision. Definitely the largest deviation from the base character that we've done thus far in the Deathless series. I know I've already seen mixed results. I don't have to say there's going to be mixed results. The hurricane delaying me means I've already seen some of the feedback. I wouldn't worry about it personally. I think this character is fun to play. I think this character is powerful. They do real damage. They have excellent heal block. And the power control is already being underrated, like I talked about. You really have to factor in the fact that you are taking power away from the opponent and never granting it to them in the first place. And that package as a whole makes Vision quite smooth to play. A lot of y'all are going for him anyway because we keep telling you that's how you get Thanos. Thanos is going to be great. But I also think Vision's just great to pick up on his own. He has the best immunities out of the Deathless so far, and that's quite nice. I know it's going to be a while before anyone gets him, so I'm not going to say go try him out and then let me know in the comments. But you can let me know how you're feeling about him. How excited are you to finally get your hands on him next month when that last piece comes out? And until next time, thank you so much for watching, and take care.